Hello, and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. Hi, I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today we're going to talk about how to plan your exit now. So, prepping your PT business to sell. And we've got our wonderful guest speaker here who's been with us many times, the one and only Jamey Schrier from Practice Freedom U. And Jamey has helped hundreds of growth-minded practice owners achieve uncommon success without the burden of working excessively in their clinic. And today we're talking about something we don't think about often, which is how are you going to exit your business and how can you make your business attractive to future buyers, whether you plan to sell a year from now, 5, or even 10 years from now. And I sold my own PT practice back in 2010, and I learned a lot in that process. So I'm excited to talk to Jamey about this. Jamey, welcome to the podcast.
Look who's back again. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about this topic. It's such an important topic, especially nowadays as people start to look at, what's the next thing from business. So yeah, looking forward to diving in with you, man.
Yeah, you've worked with different practice owners in different stages of their business and through exit. And so as you've coached lots of practice owners, at what point should a physical therapy or rehabilitation owner start thinking about selling their practice? Like how far in advance do they need to start thinking about that?
It's a good question because anytime I hear the word should, and you said the word when should they be looking at it, it's almost like there's a right answer. There's a singular answer as we've been taught and conditioned to believe. And I think the kind of the easy answer that I've heard out there is you should be looking at how you're going to sell your business or when you're going to sell when you first open your doors. And the reality of it is no, I'm trying to figure out how to build my business and grow and survive and get my first client. So I'm not gonna throw that answer to your audience. But I think the idea around selling's the outcome that all of us are going to do at one point or another, whether we're selling to a large company, selling to another place down the street, or it's a legacy and maybe we're turning it over to our team, or maybe, we have a son or daughter that wants to take it over. And I think the mindset has to be that we are looking to create what I refer to as a sale ready practice. So it's a business that has all of the components that would be attractive for someone else to buy. So the focus is to be in a position that when you want to sell it, you're ready to sell it. Now, to specifically answer your question, I would say you need at least a runway, depending on where you are, minimum 2 years. This idea that my business is down in the, not doing well this month or this quarter, and I think I'm going to get rid of it. It's like the stock market. Don't sell when the stock's going way down. Like you want to sell when things are going well. So I would say minimum 2 years. I don't think there's really a maximum. But for our clients, we say 2 years. I'll go as small as 18 months, short of 18 months, up to maybe 5 years. Everything else is really about creating a business that, fits the life that you want and the lifestyle that you want. And at the same time, continue to look at that sale ready model, which we can, of course, dive into.
Yeah, buy low, sell high, right?
Yeah,
It's
it
all,
sounds simple.
yeah.
How many people do you know? Because I'm on a lot of Facebook groups that are selling, and it's like, I go, hey, what's causing this? Well, it's horrible. I mean, we're not doing well. But I go, you're going to sell for pennies on the dollar. That's not the best way to sell unless it's an absolute necessity. But you could fix those areas. But you know,
Yeah, and that could mean hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars
millions.
left on the table because you exited when you shouldn't have, right? And I love what you're saying there. It's really about giving yourself some time to really get in the mindset, get things in place so that you can sell it for maximum, right? And
Yeah.
you don't want to be at the call, like the effect of the business and selling it that way. You want to be a cause over the business. And I was taught this many years ago, but really looking at your business not as a business but as an asset that you build, right? And so the good news is that the systems and the way that you approach building an asset helps the business run better, makes it more profitable, and then that in turn is going to help it be more valuable down the road. So, Jamey, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see owners make, when they're trying to sell their practice without proper preparation?
Well, I mean, we just talked about the number one mistake. You sell on emotion, right? You sell because you're making a reactive decision, because chances are that's how you make a lot of decisions. There's a level of emotion, there's a level of fear, there's a level of worry, and then something happens. All of a sudden, your number one payer cuts reimbursements, let's say Medicare, cuts it by 10%. And you're like, okay, forget this. Maybe I should look at selling. And then you go on these groups and they're like, yeah, you should sell. You can make a lot right now. And it just drives you to, you're just being reactive in your decision making, which puts you at a place of very low power, right? When you're reactive, you are not in a place of power. And that is not a good place to be when you're selling. So that's the number one thing. I think the other is this idea of people selling because they're trying to, it's kind of like what we just said with the market, the stock market, trying to time the market. Well, it's really good right now. Maybe now it's a time to sell. And, that wouldn't be the first question I would ask. I'd be like, you know, first of all, what do I ultimately want from my business? I would get into the idea of, is this attractive for someone? And if not, what would make it more attractive? So that would be kind of a second question. And then the third question would be, well, what is this leading to? I love when we're working with clients that are looking to sell, I always dive into the deeper, let's say you sell it, because here's what's going to happen. Money's going to go into your account, and then you're going to have the government claw back some. You're going to have your financial planner come on by and be like, give it to me. I'll make more money from this money. You'll buy a few toys with it. Within a few weeks, all of it's gone. And you're just back to waking up. And what are you doing? What is your life about? What's your purpose? What's the meaning? Depending on where you sell, I mean, they might, lock you in for a few years and give you a little carrot to be there 3 to 5 years. And maybe they'll give you an opportunity to try to, maybe build up a division of their company, trying to get other people if that's what you want. But the more time you can spend thinking about what is it that this sale is going to do for you, do for your family, do for what you want, what you're trying to do. Those are deeper questions, Neil. And those questions unlock so many other avenues that if you don't do it, this all becomes a transactional thing. And then all of a sudden you sold the company, you're probably not going to get what you want for it. You're locked in for a few years. You're kind of miserable because now you're a director or just a clinician, which is not really what you wanted to do because you love being an owner. And there's nothing more for you. I think the time to focus on that is at least 2 years, if not longer. So you have a runway to not only create the business that is going to be valuable for someone, but like you said, you're creating an appreciable asset that's also giving you the life that you want now. So it's having the life now and also learning the skills of building a business, and you're doing it with your own business. You're never going to get a safer schooling in your life. You get to try something. If it works, you make money and you have time and you have joy. If it doesn't work, you can quickly change, right? Because it's happening in real time. So I just want to kind of set that premise and how, at least I look at helping people when they're looking to sell their business is getting into some of those kind of deeper perspectives versus just the transaction of doing it.
100% agree. And I was told that actually by a financial advisor friend way back before I saw my practice is like, okay, what's your next game? What are you doing? Right. And I was like, I hadn't even thought about that. And I was like, okay,
Right.
you're right. Are you selling because you're just trying to get out, or you're selling because it's going to help you do something different or something new? And I agree. Like, you got to give yourself time to think about, okay, what would my life look like after I sell my business? Because we're often very in our business, and it's our baby that we built up, and we're very proud of it, and we want to
Right.
have the opportunities from it. But then, like you said, then you'll be tied to it for a little bit in that transition period. And then what?
Yeah.
So you got to have that next game.
And you and I are really good examples of that. I mean, there's not a ton of examples that I've seen out there, but I moved right into this coaching world, right? And helping people build and grow their practice and eventually exit. You moved into the marketing world. So we had, I don't know about you, but I was coaching before I sold. I was testing the grounds. Is this really something I want to do? Because my business was running. It was exactly what I wanted. It was kind of a self-managing, and I had time and freedom and all that. And it was like, no, this is really what I want to do. So then a few years later, I said, I'll put my business up on the market, see what it's worth. But in my mind, it didn't matter to me if it's sold or not. So I didn't have that level of pressure having to do that, which allowed me to negotiate and create a better deal than pretty much anyone I've ever known at the level I was at. Because I wasn't at, millions and millions. It was 1.4 million with a little over 300,000 and EBITDA and stuff. But yeah, but you had a similar experience, right? With the marketing?
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because I enjoyed the marketing really in my practice, and did a lot of things in there, that we would go to masterminds of other PT practices, and we would show what we were doing. They're like, "That's fantastic. Can you do that for us?" I'm like, "No, I'm running a practice." But it planted the seed. Like, there's people that needed help out there with their marketing, and it's something that I had interest in. And I was like, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity here to go bigger, right, and do more good, and help the profession more, and obviously, financially do even better. So that's what I really looked at and got exposed to, and it created those ideas, right? Um, Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one more thing, because I want to drive this home, because this is something that's not often said out in the world of like stuff and gurus and experts. Um, your business is the greatest training ground you have. The way I looked at my business, once I made the decision, I want to build something that doesn't require me being trapped in the day-to-day of my business. And I said, there's other therapists out there that are good. There's people that can answer the phone. There's people that can collect money and bill. There's people that can market. I was like, I don't see why I actually have to be in any of the day-to-day stuff aside from having meetings and mentoring and in building relationships and all that stuff. That was the way I thought. What I started to learn is that this business became the breeding ground and the training ground to help me learn about marketing, learn about connections, learn about systems, learn about communication and difficult conversations, and learn about the customer journey and experience. Like, this was the greatest schooling in the world that I wasn't paying for. In fact, this is where I came up the line, like, um, always get paid for R&D, or research and development. And then the next line is everything's R&D. So I started looking at everything in my business was R&D. I was just testing stuff and practicing stuff. And if I got it right, I didn't get an A, I got dollar signs in my bank account. And if I got it wrong, I didn't get a D or an F. I got, oh, that doesn't work. Let's shift here. And I started to look at all the areas of business, and I was like, I don't need an MBA here. I don't need another certification. I have it right here. I just need people to help guide me through this. So I encourage people, look at your business as the greatest training ground you'll ever have. And when you start to do that, you're going to start to create something that's an appreciable asset. Because you brought up the word asset, the opposite of that is, of course, liability. And it's a liability if you're trapped into something, not making the money you want, not having the time you want to enjoy the things you want, and not having a staff that's actually enthralled either. That's a liability. which someone is not going to pay a bunch of money for. So all of this becomes aligned with the ultimate goal is create a business that fulfills your life, that brings you joy, that brings your staff joy, that helps and serves so many people. And when you're ready, is going to sell for an appreciative value, a significantly more value. And wait for this, Neil, on your terms. And that is the biggest caveat. People will throw lots of numbers at you. I've talked to brokers and companies because we help many of our clients go all the way up to the sale, and we're there with them the whole way. And they're like, "Oh my God, they said they're going to give me this multiple." I go, "No, no, 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 no. Let's look at what that includes." And then they go through all the details, and then I look at my client and says, "I don't want to do that." It's like, exactly. So the number, they can't buy your what you want. Like if someone could say, Neil, I know you want to start your marketing business. We want to lock you in for 5 years. You would have been like, I'm not going to put my whole next chapter of my life on hold because you're going to throw a couple dollars at me. And that's what happens because people aren't aware how this system really works and what people are actually buying of yours.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it. That's why you need to have the help around you, right? And people that have been there before. And so, Jamey, this kind of leads into my next question, which is what factors do you find most influence the value of your practice and how you can make that even more attractive to future buyers?
Yeah, well, there's a couple key factors, and then I'm going to give you the sub factors that help with those key factors. So one we all know is EBITDA. It's an objective number. It's your earnings. Basically, the way I look at EBITDA, it's more or less your profit, but you're going to add back some of the stuff that when you sell it won't go with you, like your car and your phone and your insurance and whatever else you're running through your business. That's not going to move forward. So it's your profit of the company, which is, should be easy to understand. And then you would add back those. So it's going to be typically more than your profit of the company. So that EBITDA number, and then that gets multiplied by a number, and that kind of becomes what your company quote is worth. That number is key because there are certain points that buyers look at that determine bigger multiples. So if your number's at 200, 300,000, you're probably looking at a 3 multiple, 2 to 3 multiple, versus if your number is, let's say, 2 million in EBITDA, you could be anywhere from 7 to 9 or maybe even more. So you can see that, yes, you're making more money, but the multiple significantly increases. So that number, which is difficult for many therapists and clinically minded people, because we're not typically money oriented and money driven. However, the person buying you wants to know that their investment is going to produce money back so they can pay their investment off. So that's number one. Number two would be your team, right? If the team is just you, well, chances are you're not doing $2 million in EBITDA. But if you have 40, 50 providers, that's a significant business. As a potential buyer, what I see is protection. I see something that is, look, if this person sells it, my investment's not going to go away in a minute. Like there's a lot of great people involved and structure and stuff like that. So, and I'm trying to keep it, yeah, I'm trying to keep it simple here without going too much in the weeds. So, your providers is key. And then a part of that would be the structure of the business, like the SOPs, the systems and the processes, like how consistent are those? So you and I mean, you're in the marketing world. Marketing is a process, right? Like how consistent is your marketing processes that's producing leads and producing referrals that could, conversion and maybe referrals from, reactivating past people. Like, do you have consistent ways of doing it, or is it you thinking of, oh, you know what? I'm going to put out a social media post today and that's going to be good. Like if I don't, I mean, I've seen companies 2, 3, 4 million and I look at their marketing and I'm like, I can't I can't pay for this because there's too much of a question mark on if you leave, everything's going to go down. So either I'm going to give you the number you want and tie you into that number for 5 years, or I'm just going to give you a ridiculously low number. So when you start looking at your systems and processes, it's not just a handbook. It's not just KPIs and how do we achieve, cancellations of 8%. You look at each area of your business, marketing being a very significant one. So those are three really big ones. Other ones to include would be something like footprints. Like if you have lots of locations, if they bought you, they would get like the whole footprint of the state, something like that. But those are, typically bigger companies and things like that. But those are like three, like you do that, you're going to be in a really good position.
Yeah. So EBITDA, team, and systems.
The top 10% of PT owners aren't just surviving, they're thriving. But what's their secret? Well, Neil Trickett's new Market to Grow book reveals how the top 10% of PT practices leverage marketing systems to simultaneously grow their new patients, attract top talent, and boost profit in their practice. You can learn from their secrets. Visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free copy of Market to Grow. Yes, you heard that right. We are shipping a free copy of Market to Grow to all podcast listeners who want it. Just visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free book. And now back to the show.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's also important what you said before, when you give yourself that runway, it gives you a chance to have those things in place better, especially the EBITDA, because there can be a lot of things that you can run through your business that are coming off and not giving you that net. And you'd have to obviously put those back on at the end and everything. There's a lot of questions that start to come up around that. So if you can make it as clean as possible, and sometimes you say,
Right.
hey, I'll remove my cell phone bill, I'll remove my car that I'm running through the business, or there's certain, I have the kids on the
Yeah.
business or something like that. You want to remove all of that 1 or 2 years out so that the net income that you're seeing from the business is cleaner. And that, again, is going to help lessen questions.
Yeah, I would say at least 18 months to 2 years because they're going to want to see 1 to 2 years. So that's one of the things that we like to see is like, okay, what's involved in all these expenses? Because they're going to want to see as clean books as possible. They're going to know that you're going to run some things because you should run legitimate expenses because you shouldn't be paying tax on that if it's a legitimate expense. Buyers are okay with that as long as everything's justified. So there's an exercise that you can just go through all of these add backs and you can say, which one would a buyer not blink an eye at? And do you have a justification of that? And is it easy just to have books that removes it? So you could almost have two sets of let's say P&Ls. You could have one that your accountant's using and submitting, and then one that, hey, this is kind of the books without all that stuff. So when you have a longer runway of, let's say, 18, 24 months or longer, you're able to start preparing. I like calling it a sale ready practice. You're starting to prepare your business for the sale. Then this is before you look at a broker. Because once you're looking at a broker, you're looking at the broker's job is to help you position the company to get a buyer, right? So if you're already organized, it's going to be a faster process and you're going to be more clear and get more attractive offers in doing that. So, but yeah, having the cleanest of the EBITDA, and it gives you time to start understanding what that is. Because I think it's important for you as the business owner. You don't have to do all the stuff. I'm always like a who, not how person, but you need to understand enough to know what questions to ask. And too many people I talk to go, EBITDA, EBITDA, babada. I don't know what that is. I go, it's your company. If you don't know what that is, you are going to get taken advantage of, even if it's the nicest person in the world. They are not going to offer you more than they have to offer you.
Right. Yeah. Everybody wants a good deal, right?
Yeah, so the EBITDA, and then obviously the team, a smaller team, one person leaves and you have four people, That could be 25% of your business. So if you have a small team, they want to know, how do you typically get the people? What is your onboarding and training and hiring process? Buyers love processes because process is predictability. And when you have a way of doing something and something doesn't work, you can look specifically at an area and fix it and see what happens. If there's no process, the deduction of problem solving becomes just whatever you think it is. It's just very subjective. It's very all over the place. And that puts question marks in buyers' mind.
Yeah.
So we don't like to be pigeonholed. This was always my problem, Neil, is I like processes. I just don't I don't like being pigeonholed and this is how I do things. And I think there's a misnomer that processes mean robots. No, processes mean clarity and expectation. There's still plenty of room for you to show up as just a amazing human that's talented doing whatever your role is. And I think that isn't an all or none type of thing. There's a gray area that has both of those elements.
Awesome. I think too, like even if you're not in the mindset of like, hey, you know what, I've been running my business for a while. I'm not really planning on selling this in a couple years. I'm maybe 40 years old and I want to keep this thing running for another 10 years or something like that. I think it's good just to set yourself some targets anyway, 5 years out. Like, hey, if an opportunity came along in 5 years time or 3 years time, what would I need my business to be at and look like? Where would I need my EBITDA to be? Where would I need my systems to be? So
Right.
just kind of a mind exercise there.
So this is where the sale ready practice mindset comes in. Like I go, that's wonderful. You can keep it for 20 years, but wouldn't it be nice to have a business that's self-managing, that you don't have to be in there day in and day out? If you want to keep trading, you can choose to, but you're not tied to inside the business. They're like, yeah, when would you like a business like that? 2, 3 years, perfect. Let's focus on that type of business. And then at that time, you'll already know, do I want to sell? Do I want to expand? Most people can't think that far out because what private practice owners love to try to do is problem solve. Neil, if you don't know what you don't know, how can you possibly solve the problem? But we're so smart, we want to know it. So we limit ourselves in the fact that, when we were 5 years old, we could dream about anything, not knowing how the heck we were going to get there. As you get older, you get a little more cynical. Your past experience kind of dictate what's possible, and you lose the ability to dream. You lose the ability to think bigger. So everything becomes, I can only think as big as I can figure out. And that is a real challenge for us. So, what we try to do is get people to say, okay, you cannot figure out right now how you're going to do it, but we still need a destination of where we're going. If I had the magic wand and made anything possible, what is your destination? That gives people a little bit more permission. And I ask, people listening, ask yourself that. If anything was possible, what would you want this business to be? What would you want your day-to-day life to be? Describe that perfect week for you. The more you can get clear on that, the more it gives you clarity today. A bigger future gives you clarity today. If you don't have that, you don't need to change much today. But when you have that picture, it allows you to focus on, so what skills do I need? What part of my business needs to be better? Where do I need help? Such as marketing or systems or financials or bookkeeping or whatever it is. It forces you to start looking at things differently because you have that destination. There's a great kind of example of this. If I said, Neil, you're going to go home and you're going to tell your wife, you're going to be all excited. You go, honey, we're going away. Let's go. Let's pack. What do you think she would say? The first thing.
Where are we going?
Why does that matter to her?
How she's got to pack.
Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it for a day? Is it for a week? Is it for a month? You see, knowing where you're going forces you to ask so many other questions. How many people are running their business is, guess what? What? We're going somewhere. Where are you going? I have no idea. Great. Let's start building the business. But what do you focus on? Like, are we building a business that's going to be 10 locations? It's going to be 50 million? It's going to be 5 million? It's going to be 500,000? Where are we going with this? And when you get that clarity, you always can change your mind. You can be on your way to this trip and say, hey, we're going to go here instead. But it allows you to start executing a plan, which is here's our focus for the next 90 days. Here's where we're going in the next year. Again, you can always change that. I think people sometimes that I talk to go, yeah, but Jamey, I don't want to feel locked in. I go, it's your business. You can pivot, you can shift. Believe me, you're going to pivot and shift because the world's going to make you pivot and shift. But at least you have alignment of the effort that you're putting in and the place that you're trying to go to. That shift in how you think about that is just awesome.
Yeah, that's great advice there. And so that kind of ties then into how important is it for the practice to run without the owner being there day to day in order for that valuation, right? That sale price.
How big do you want the valuation to be? I mean, look, if you are, the more you're involved in the business, meaning day to day, like when I say involved, day to day, when I say work less, I mean work less in the day to day. You still have a role. You're still going to do other things, but they're higher level CEO type of stuff. So if you are in the business because you have to be in the business, then you are taking over positions and ways of doing things. And if you're doing that, that means the system and the way of doing it is you. You leave, that whole thing leaves. If you are not in the business and the business still runs well, delivers great care, your staff is awesome, people know what to do when they need time off, not everything goes by you, and your company's profitable, then what that says is your business is more valuable because it has less risk to it. Because when you're removed from the business, which at some point you're going to be removed when it's sold, the business still has an amazing chance to continue to thrive, especially when it already has a history of thriving without you. You see, the reason I got a 5 multiple, which is unheard of for a business my size. Again, I had a $300,000 EBITDA. I got a 5 multiple because the person's, and I asked the guy, I go, why'd you give me the multiple I wanted? Because he offered me 3. And he goes, because Jamey, you're not in there day in and day out. And your business looks strong. I'm willing to give you that because I know I'm going to get that back and then some. And that just hit me like, wow, because I removed myself and replaced myself with great people, good systems, clarity, regular meetings, and all this other stuff that we need, good tools and everything, that business is worth more. So when people, I just had a call today with an owner, and he was trying to sell me on, yeah, but I want to make sure I still treat Jamey. Like, you're not going to make me stop treating. And I'm like, I'm not going to make you do anything. It's really about what you want. If you want a business that's a sale ready, that's going to be valuable to someone in the whatever number they were talking about, you being in the business because you have to, it's going to be worth less to them. If you're like, hey, I work 10 hours a week, I treat some VIP people because I love it, but none of my clients are actually on the books. That's just like extra. Then they're like, oh, okay. But if you're 35 hours a week, then what we're going to have to do is make sure that your income that you're making is similar to what it would be to replace you, which is going to reduce the overall value of the company because that money won't be EBITDA. That money will be kind of an expense because we're going to have to replace you. But more than that, when you're in the business, and this is something that I don't get too off topic with this, but when the owner is in the business, I don't care what kind of management team you have, what kind of leadership team you supposedly have in place. When the owner is in the day-to-day, they play that role. They're not the owner when they're or when they're in the day-to-day, they're the owner, they're the director. If you're treating, you're the therapist. Meaning that even if you have a clinical director in place, the fact that you're in there, the staff's going to go to you because you can't take that influence of you being the owner. So these people that say, well, I'll treat, but I'll hire someone else to kind of run the business and be the director, I've never seen that work in 20 years. So these are tough decisions to make, but it also forces you to say, do you want to own a business? Do you want to own an asset? Or do you want a job? It's your choice, but you can't have both. You can't have a job and then expect to sell for millions. So it's always your choice. I never tell people this is the way, and I know there's other people out there that says this is the way your business has to be and operate. I'm like, I don't tell you that. There are certain frameworks and principles that need to be in there to be successful, but you get to choose what you want from this business. Our job is to help you get there.
Yeah, and that's probably a good realization for a lot of practice owners when they realize like, oh, you know what? I love treating because that's what I'm went to school for. That's what I'm used to. I'm really good at it. I get great results. It makes me feel good. Um, but
It's safe,
it's
Neil.
safe, right? And
Safe.
then it's the hard work is on the business side, right? And making the tough decisions and um, having to take the risks. But you're right in that I've seen that before where if you're any involvement in the business, especially in the treating of patients, they are going to ding you for that amount. Like, hey, I'm going to take a therapist salary out of this, total net because I can't replace you, right? I have to replace you. So
Here's the negotiation I make with clients who are like, you know, but I want to treat. I go, let's make a deal. Give me a little bit of time to remove you from being the clinician in there. Let's get everything set up. And then you can go back and treat whatever you want to treat. But it's already going to be set up. And they're like, okay, how many times do you think they go, like, I want to go back in there? I would think 80% of the time they're like, I didn't even think this was possible. And they don't choose to go back. 20% of the time they'll go back and treat, like I said, I like using the word VIP. Like you're the owner. You just work with the people that you want to work with. You come in once a week or twice a week, whatever you want. Who really cares? If it brings you joy, great. But it's not disrupting the day-to-day aspects of the business. And that's why it's critical for an owner when you're preparing yourself to sell. It is critical for you to be out of that clinic to see how it runs. Because if you don't do that, and the first time you're going to do that is when you sell, that company, first of all, the buyer's too smart. They're going to know that. They're not going to give you the price that you want. Here's the thing. I mean, you could call it, I've heard it called the 14-day test, the 21-day test, the 30-day test. We've called it the 21-day test. The 21-day test, as Neil's smiling, is what would happen if you were out of the office for 21 days? And I don't mean out of the office at home. I mean out of the office. You're away. What would happen to your business? And 99 out of 100 people I've talked to said, I can't even imagine that. I said, cool. Write down everything that would happen and then, put it in the chat GPT and say, here's what's happening in my business right now. I want you to put it in an order of priority of what I should focus on based on wanting to sell my business in the next 2 years. Go in order. Follow that. It'll be pretty accurate. And it'll give you a framework on how to go about fixing those things versus I could never be away from my business. I can't even take a weekend, but you don't do anything about it.
yeah, it's the
Then you
litmus
try to sell your
test.
business. What was that?
It's the litmus test of the health
Yeah.
of your business, right?
Yeah.
You're being able to be away for a while and still run without you. Absolutely. And so as part of that, right, and the kind of removal of yourself or being able to work from a higher level, what do you see as buyers? What do they look for as far as that leadership structure? What do they want to see in place for the key people in the business?
Yeah, depending how big your company is. So your company, any company has stages, and stages are typically financial stages. So to keep it simple, if you're under 500,000, we call that the kind of the starter stage, the committed clinician stage, 500,000 to a million, and I mean total revenue collected. That's the overwhelmed operator stage. A lot of people are in that stage. Typically, it's you treating, plus you've hired a few other people, but you're trapped kind of in the business. And then you have that $1 to, let's say, $5 million stage. This is a stage where you start to put the management team in place. You start to put the leadership team in place. And then over 5 million, you better have a solid leadership team in place. You got someone running the operations. You got, a financial person. You got the marketing person. Like You have all of these components. So if a lot of times what I see are people that are in that third stage, that 1 to 5 million, but they act like they're at 700,000. Like it's amazing. Like they're building this 3, 4, $5 million business and they don't have management in place. They don't have leadership in place. It's just them kind of doing it all and being the bottleneck and everyone else just kind of playing off the owner. So it's important. You're not going to have a massive leadership team when you're at a $600,000 business.
Yeah.
To me, understanding where someone is in their business journey is important of what advice I give them. So for people that are above 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, start to look at the key people you would need, such as a clinical director, such as a marketing person, such as a billing manager or a practice manager. There's lots of different ways to do that, and there's lots of different things you can call them. And sometimes people have multiple skills, but this is all about continuing to remove you from being the person that does that specific job. So it's a different shift in looking at, I'm putting in a leadership team that if I wasn't here, but someone else was brought in to be the visionary, this team could handle it. Because what's happening is when you sell and you start to move away from the business, whatever, let's say you sell and you have a 1 year commitment, there's going to be someone else that can handle what you were doing. What they don't want to do is dive in and be the director or the operations person or the practice manager. They don't want to deal with that. They can easily take your role. So that's when when you start, I would say definitely at 1.5, 2 million, that's when you really want to start taking seriously about putting in that leadership management team, which then forces you to create the skill levels to actually hire, train, and mentor leaders. You as a leader training other leaders is a very different skill level than you training, people at a different level.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so, Jamey, a lot of great tips and advice here, kind of looking ahead. Is there any final thoughts here for our audience who are considering selling their practice in, say, the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. Get this term, sale ready practice, right? Understand that in 2 to 3 years, I want to sell my practice. How much do you want to walk away with after you have to pay taxes on it? But just how much do you want to walk away with? And where is your practice at risk? When you ask yourself, okay, I want this, and my practice is at risk here, it will start giving you a framework of what to do. Chances are your practice is at risk because you're in the business putting out fires and doing stuff. That's the hardest thing in the world because it's a safe place for us because we've been trained our whole lives to have a clinical mindset. And being a business owner, and Neil, I know you and I have talked about this, being a business owner is like the opposite of a clinical mindset. Like you can't get further away from that, how you look at something in those two ways. So that would be where I would start. Of course, having a guide, having someone that's been there, done that can help guide you. I would absolutely recommend, whether it's a mentor, whether it's someone that you're paying to help you. I think that is really important to have as well.
100% agree. Yeah, I think, again, if you're looking to take your practice to that next level, if you're thinking or considering of selling your practice in the near future, that's a great time to get a coach or a mentor. Jamey, your team does a phenomenal job there at Practice Freedom U. So what's the best way for people to reach out and find out more about what you and your team do?
Yeah, a couple things. So we just started a practice freedom community. This is more than a community. It's like a movement of people that realize that this business is an asset. This business is a vehicle to create the life that you want and sell for whatever you want to sell for at top dollar. So we'll give you the link to join. This is for private practice owners only. And this isn't just about having discussions. I'm in there. We're giving advice. We're holding meetups. Like this is like training ground, but it's all for free. But we make sure it's a curated group. And then, of course, if you want to have a conversation, you want to talk a little bit about your business, where those challenges are, happy to have a discovery call. with you and, dive into some of those things and to see if coaching is the right fit. So those are two ways that you can connect with us and get some help.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jamey. Appreciate it. As always, great advice, and check out Practice Freedom U. Jamey will be with me also at the private practice section APTA in Orlando this year. So looking forward to hanging out and seeing you there. So thanks to all our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the Practice Marketing Podcast as well as our YouTube channel. And we've got tons of resources and advice for you on practicepromotions.net. So check out if you need there. So if you need some marketing advice, downloads, all kinds of great stuff for you on that. So this is Neil Trickett from the Practice Marketing Podcast, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to ratings and review on your phone and click write a review. Thanks.